I find it very impressive that even a month after the release of Breath of the Wild, I still don't pass up any opportunity to talk about the game. As more friends beat the game, or as some of my friends finally buy the game, I am happy to hear their experiences and share mine as well. The game is so creative, it has so much possibility, and there's so many just amazing ways to die in that game. I can talk about it for hours on end, and many people that have played the game can do the same, but this is kind of where we get to the point of the video. Also, quick spoiler warning, I'm not doing any kind of general broad idea or just kind of discussion video. I'm going to talk about the in-game story. I'm going to go heavy on the spoilers as to why I feel you should skip the story the first time you play Breath of the Wild, and that just mostly goes off of what I've seen in the comments as well as what I've talked about with my friends. And what really sparked this was my video. Somehow it blew up to almost 200,000 views where I just say, screw the story, I'm gonna fight the Ganon end boss, and that's led to a lot of mixed reaction. There's a lot of negativity in that video saying I'm an idiot for not getting the Master Sword, for only having 3 hearts, for wanting to play this game of limitless potential the way I wanted to play it. That I'm an idiot because, oh, I shouldn't have skipped all the Divine Beasts because then that means I have to fight all the Blight forms before I fight Ganon. Then Ganon loses half his health and then the final boss becomes a lot easier. How does that make me an idiot? I wanted to kind of take the story the way I wanted to. That the first quest you get, or like the first major quest as you leave the Great Plateau, says, defeat Ganon. The game developers have said in many interviews that that is one aspect of the game that they want to challenge you with, is going straight to Ganon. Now, I didn't go directly to Ganon. I kind of farmed up a bit, got some good items, and then understood the game before tackling the boss, but it's still a part of the story. I think that's a big factor, is that I'm not doing any kind of skipping. I'm not playing in any unintended way. The developers wanted some people to do this craziness, and then there's also a lot of positivity in the comments as well. That people either applauded my sanity, and some even felt regret for not doing it for themselves. And also, I kind of got the same from my friends as well, that they said by doing the story, the game turned out to be not as impressive, that it started to tail off, it felt like it was a little too guided for such an open world game, and then the in-game boss was way too easy. That I loved every moment of my experience because I didn't feel tied down to any story. I didn't feel like I had to go do some kind of mini quest, to do a mini quest, to then get the item, to then beat the Divine Beast, and then I have to do this 3 more times, and then I can finally go to Ganon. I was like, if I see something over there, I'm gonna go for it. Now, I know that a lot of people still did that, but it wasn't ever in the back of my mind, oh man, I should be really trying to focus on the story right now. I just said, when I feel strong enough, I'm going to tackle the castle. And that turned out to just be the best way of enjoying this massive game for Legend of Zelda. And then another complaint, like this is where we get back into the dislikes, that the main complaints about the game are Ganon's too easy and the dungeons are kind of a joke. I feel that the dungeons are balanced in their own way, that if you're a skilled Legend of Zelda fan and you know what to look for and you're really good at solving puzzles, they're going to be pretty easy. And I think there's a good sense of accomplishment right there. That if you walk up to the Divine Beast, you look at it, you're like, oh, I already know pretty much exactly what to do, maybe a little bit of fiddling around, and then I'm going to go and just crush this. So that actually has its own accomplishment, but then you kind of turn around and in hindsight, you're like, well, that was a little too easy. Now, I do see that this would pose a nice challenge for someone that isn't very experienced in Legend of Zelda, so it does keep those Legend of Zelda aspects alive, but then you get to the final boss, and it's nothing. You have overpowered abilities, and then Ganon is also weakened by it. So it does make the game a lot easier. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I feel that it takes all the challenge, that, you know, you find out that it was harder to take down some camps than it was taking down the final boss, except the way I played it. Now, the crazy thing is, I tried to stay as spoiler-free as possible, and I did not know that the Blight forms would actually not be there if you did the Divine Beast, and I prefer it that way. That I loved the in-game boss gauntlet. I was like, oh my goodness. There's like 2 forms of these pretty challenging bosses. You know, some of the Blight forms are easier than others, and then you get to Thunder Blight, and it's an absolute madhouse. But at the same time, it's like, I had to do 4 of those, then you go straight into a full health Ganon. That felt epic. That was like, alright, I'm geared up, I have a lot of food, I have a lot of like all this good stat boosting equipment and everything, and it still felt challenging, even though I thought I was overpowered. I'm like, I have 2-star Guardian armor, I have a ton of ancient arrows, I have a ton of like defensive food, I have a ton of attack buffing food. This should be easy, and it was still a bit of a challenge, and I loved it because I didn't just slap around the final boss like I thought I would. I got there, and it was tough. I was there for, you know, my final episode was like almost 50 minutes or something. So I was just there for 30 minutes at the in-game boss, just trying to keep going for it. And I loved every part of that. Also, like, the castle was a lot easier the way I played that. I just farmed up items. I was just sitting there. I'm like, alright, just deflecting shots everywhere, climbing around. It felt like a really powerful adventure. I felt like the main protagonist that just kind of fought from the underground instead of just getting all these super amazing things handed to me and then taking out the boss way too easily. It was more of a fulfilling experience because of that, and I feel that it all came from skipping the story. And then the story felt better. That wasn't pressure. I'm like, you know what? I already took care of Ganon. There's nothing left to do. I get to chill now. So I was able to go through the main story quest and just be like, oh, that was cool. And I didn't feel like I was losing anything. That, okay, I beat Ganon, but then there's more questions. And I'm like, hey, if I did the story, maybe the game will tell me what I missed. So it kind of like filled my head with like, oh, what if? What is this? What is this? I remember all these people. What are these names? I see like little spoilers online and stuff, and they more piqued my interest. So then that drove me to finish the story. I wanted to find out what was going on more than I ever did. And then I kind of did that, and now I'm about to beat Ganon for the second time. So it was really cool. And then we get back to like the Master Sword and the 3 hearts and stuff. I like the challenge of having 3 hearts. I had to have a lot of like overhealing food. I had to have some extra fairies just to make sure I stayed alive. I didn't have any extra help from Mipha's Grace or anything like that, so it was a lot more challenging, and I enjoyed that part of it. Also, it's like, oh, the Master Sword. Everyone's like saying, oh, you're bad because you don't have the Master Sword. 99% of them probably had to look up the guide to find the Master Sword anyways, and then they're telling other people that they're bad for not looking up a guide for the Master Sword. I was against guides of all kind until I beat Ganon for the first time. I wanted to explore everything on my own and figure out the game for myself, and I think preserving that and just going into this reckless in-game of craziness really enhanced the experience in every way. And after talking with friends and after talking with other people about the game, they more wish that they did what I did. They're like, yeah, story, I enjoyed it, it's a good story, and it had like a lot of epic moments. That after clearing Naborius, you have Urbosa there, and she just kind of points at the castle. She's like, oh, I can't wait to get my revenge. There are some amazing moments in the story, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it, but I feel that it wasn't necessary for enjoying the game, and then you can still get what you need to after clearing Ganon for the first time. Now, I did kind of cheese it a bit as well. That I had a lot more of a freeform idea, that I started the first story and I'm like, let me just go to Zora. And then they said, oh, you need Thunder Arrows. I said, Thunder Arrows? Screw that, I'm gonna go back to exploring. And then I ended up going to Gerudo, and Gerudo sells Thunder Arrows. So that let me skip some of the Zora story, and then I already had these Zora tunics. I was able to climb up the waterfalls and then head over to Akkala for free. It all worked out in the end, and I don't understand why people were so upset about that. I feel it's just a really closed-minded way of tackling such an open game, and that's really just kind of why I want to get my thoughts out there, that there's a lot of negativity around it that just surprised me. But then after talking to a lot of the people that have played the game, they feel that I took a pretty solid approach at the game, and I really feel that it works, and that if you didn't do that, it's unfortunate in its own way. That I recommend that you should try taking on Ganon, and you should try to play the game in a more freeform style without the story, because in an open world game like this, the story isn't going to be as fleshed out than a story-driven game for sure, and it looks like the developers wanted that to happen. They wanted some people to play like me, and they made the experience just as good, if not better, for depending on how you want to play. So I'm not going to be like, you're wrong for playing the story. Some people might have found it a bit more enjoyable, but I don't think it's the other way around in that it ruins any part of the experience. And my recommendation is that you skip the story and you just have fun. You know, and then you just play as Link, and then you just learn about everything else at your own time. It's different. It's definitely a different kind of Zelda game. So those are my thoughts on Breath of the Wild. That, interestingly enough, I don't have the complaints that other people do, that I didn't find the in-game boss being too easy, because I thought this is just the right amount of difficulty, maybe slightly above what I expected for like a challenge right there. But then if you take away most challenge, then yeah, it'd be a stupidly easy game. And then since I didn't consider the Divine Beast as much of a chore for those dungeons, really my only complaint with Breath of the Wild are the load times if I do a lot of quick traveling. And other than that, I fell into the hype, and it's an absolutely wonderful game. So I wish people would keep their negativity out of it and try to do some things for themselves instead of reading guides and just playing a closed-minded story path. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching. Wait, can I just drop one thing onto another? Wow, that gets some height. No! I don't want to do that again. I think it's saved at the chest open, but I don't want to do that again.